This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome in, my friends, to another episode of Behind the Pen. My name is Mike Rankin, and I am back from Florida. Unfortunately, I guess, for selfish reasons. Man, Florida's beautiful. I love it. But I got to give a big thanks to Ricky and Brandon for taking over Behind the Pen for me last week. It is Friday, August 26th, as I record this podcast, and I'm going to get into a lot of stuff. But first, I got to mention, follow us on Twitter at Most Valuable Pod, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel, Most Valuable Podcast, and check us out on blogtalkradio.com/Most Valuable Podcast. That's our new outlet where we'll have our full-length podcast. Check those out. It's really cool. We got everything for you guys, so every sport. So be there or be square. SoundCloud no longer, starting in October, I believe. So keep that in mind. All right, let's get this show started with the Chicago Bears, our Chicago Bears. We have a wonderful following here at MVP. Lots of Bears fans follow this channel and listen in. Thank you very much, as always. Guys, let's talk about this. Now, I'm recording this the day before the third preseason game. And I know the all-important third preseason game is the precursor to the regular season. That's probably the most game-ready we're going to see guys who are going to be on the field during the season on the field for a lengthy amount of time, going into the third quarter most likely. But I just want to touch on the second preseason game because I didn't get a chance to, and then I'm going to look ahead because something's going on in the water that they're drinking, I guess, because they're all hurt. They're all hurt, and this is a concern, big time. It started in training camp. They lost Grisou for the year. Marquise Wilson's got a broken foot, and he's never healthy. Zach Miller has never gotten through a preseason in his life without getting hurt. Another tight end, Tony Moyaki, that they were high on, he's hurt. He's been almost always injured. So, and it just, the list continues. Jeremy Langford had a foot thing. He should be fine, though. I don't expect him to play a lot in the third preseason game. Kyle Long's dealing with a labrum issue. That is not good. Now, I don't care how they downgrade it or just... when you have a labrum, it's the cartilage that surrounds the shoulder muscle that allows it to bend. And if it's weak, it'll pop out, and it's ineffective. It's extremely weak. And this is a very lingering type of injury that I'm kind of keeping an eye on, a close eye on in Kyle Long. Because specifically in the offensive line, they really don't have that much depth. Because if one offensive lineman gets hurt, then not good, because they have nobody behind them. And that goes really throughout the depth chart. Honestly, I mean, the wide receiver core that they have right now is pretty exciting. The running backs that they have right now, I like where they're at, but they're young. But still, Jeremy Langford will be most likely the horse. Jordan Howard will get extended looks. I'm really excited about Kadeem Carey. Kadeem Carey looks like he's going to be explosive out of the backfield. He could also contribute on special teams, so that's value right there. And then you have Jacquez Rodgers. Now, is he going to be on the field as a running back that sees a lot of playing time? Maybe not. Most likely not if they have those rotation of the regular three. But he's a nice depth piece, and he's definitely going to contribute on special teams. Veteran guy who can catch passes out of the backfield. Running back situation's fine. Receivers fine. Quarterbacks are fine. But offensive line, not fine. Not fine at all. We saw it in week 1, and that's not going away. They look better in week 2 of the preseason. But really, we didn't see many different fronts from the Patriots. They didn't blitz with these different looks. It was pretty much straight up. And they did well. Got to give them credit. But, once they're tested, it's going to be different. Now, on to the tight end position. I mentioned all the injuries already. Who's Rob Hausler? He's one of the guys that is going to be expected to contribute because of the threat of injury to Zach Miller and Tony Moyaki. Moyaki would be a nice boost, a very nice boost if Miller and Moyaki could stay on the field together. That's a pretty dynamic, not only in terms of pass catching, but blocking as well. So, and it also looks like the Bears are going into a fullback set to implement that into their offensive scheme. But, all right, I backtrack. But overall, like I said, offensively, questions at tight end, questions in the offensive line. Running backs are young and unproven, but I feel like they'll be set there. On the other side of the ball, their front seven's their strength. There's no question about it. We had Danny Trevathan's hurt, and that's a problem. Pernell McPhee, that knee surgery. Why was he playing so late into last season when there was just no point of him doing that is beyond me. But he's recovering. Hasn't played in the preseason yet. should be healthy by game 1, but he's a nice boost. But moving on to the secondary, there is nothing much there, guys, and that's concerning. The one thing I will say, though, is Vic Fangio is one of the top defensive minds in the game, and we saw it last year with the lack of talent that he was able to come up with schemes and getting guys in the right position. They just weren't athletic enough to make plays. But now you upgrade at linebacking positions. Jarrell Freeman looks like he's going to be big. Trevathan, if he's healthy, he's going to be big. Akeem Hicks on the line. Jonathan Buller is going to contribute. Keith Browner, by the way, he stood out. I'm going to get to that in the preseason talk. But the secondary is very concerning. And yes, it's a benefit to have Vic Fangio there, but you're going to rely on guys like Bryce Callahan, Deion Bush, DeAndre Hall, Jamontre Hurst as well, who's been terrible with the Bears. He's probably signed the longest. He's probably the longest tenured Bear on the team next to Cutler. So that's not good. And he hasn't even played. Kyle Fuller's hurt. He's probably not going to be ready for game 1. If he is, he might not even start. So Tracy Porter's really the only lock guy at corner, and he's just a guy, to be quite honest. I've said that before. So it's concerning. Adrian Amos is a very nice piece at safety. And you're probably going to start the season with Chris Brzezinski, but you have Harold Jones-Quartey as well in the mix. I don't see much from him. We'll see the development, but they're young. That's the point. They're very young and inexperienced. So we got to look. There's specific individual players that get me excited and get me feeling like the Bears can be competitive, and I think they will be. I'm not going to shy away from my 10-6 prediction. They're making the playoffs, guys. They're going to do it. But realistically, they're going to need a lot of things to go right for them. And it starts with the schedule, really. Their schedule is pretty lackluster. And they should be able to take advantage. They're playing a lot of teams who finished dead last in the division last year. There's going to be some tough ones, especially the Jaguars. That's going to be, believe it or not, that's going to be a tough game. And I hope they don't lose, but I feel like they will, regardless. The Bears just got to be able to stay healthy, and that's almost impossible to do in the NFL. We already see it. I don't understand how these players are, the amount of players that are hurt throughout training camp, preseason starts, and more players go down. And I guess I'm asking the question to myself, why are there so many preseason games? Yeah, it's an opportunity to see the depth of your team perform against other, NFL talent. But do you really need 4? Because I think really teams could only do with 2 and they'll be fine, I believe. So, I don't know. I think more preseason games increase just the probability that star players are going to get hurt. And are you going to leave them out? Okay, whatever. Yeah, that's your choice. But all right, I digress again, which I usually do on Behind the Pen. Let's talk about this Week 2 preseason game, because it was actually pretty encouraging. I was very happy with what I saw throughout most of the game. I know they end up losing and whatever. Final score, like you said, preseason means nothing. And besides evaluating talent and deciding who's going to make the roster, implementing new systems, seeing how the starters can go up against other number ones. A certain player who I mentioned already, who I'd like to see get more playing time against the ones, is Keith Browner. It's a big force in the middle of the line, and it's unfortunate Cornelius Washington, who is another guy who's hurt, and he's always hurt, he's got talent. Lots of talent. It's just unfortunate that he just keeps getting injured and he's not able to stay on the field. It might even cost him a roster spot at this point, because you're going to need depth. You're going to need guys to perform. And on the line, Jonathan Bullard's good. Akeem Hicks was a nice pickup. Willie Young signed that extension. That's big, very big, because he's one of their best defensive players on the team. So we watched Leonard Floyd kind of mature a little bit in game 1. We saw him, well, I guess he was humbled. I would call it humble, not matured. He was humbled in game 1. Didn't look terrible. Was doing things Vic Fangio liked. Week 2 of the preseason, he saw time at inside linebacker. Is he going to play inside linebacker during the regular season? He may have to, because these guys are hurt. Nick Kwiatkowski, another guy who is expected to be on the injured reserve list going into this season. He was a 4th-round draft pick. Talented depth piece in the linebacker position. Gone. All of these guys are gone already, and it hasn't even been week 1 of the season. So, yeah, I might be crying a little bit, but it's just really frustrating when you have these expectations going into the season and where you feel like you upgraded, you've done a great job in the draft, I know they're young and inexperienced players, but those are positions in need with talent, as well as hitting on free agents, key free agents that give you a chance to be competitive and make a playoff run. But when these guys keep getting hurt, it just keeps setting you back. And especially in the offensive line, I'm going to keep bringing this up. Brought this up at least 10 times already with the Matt Lawson thing. I mean, you had two guys that they brought in as they were expecting to be depth pieces, and they retired. I mean, you can't fault them for retiring. Obviously not. That's whatever. What are you going to do there? But it's just, you let go of Matt Lawson. I know hindsight's 2020. I've also said that exact phrase like 20 times on the show, but it's true. Now without Slauson, he's starting elsewhere, and he could have been a valuable piece for the Bears front. But hey, it is what it is at this point. I hope the interior does well enough to keep Cutler off his ass, because I don't know how Ted Larson's going to fare at center. I mean, he's okay. Bobby Massey doesn't look good at all. He didn't play well in the second preseason game. He didn't play well in the first preseason game. And even in practice, he's getting beat. So that's not good. But Bobby Massey and Kyle Long work out together. They have a good relationship. So if they mend that, the right guard, right tackle, that area is probably an area that they're going to attack. And with a weak offensive line, too, it not only affects Cutler, obviously, because Cutler would occasionally, more than occasionally, at certain points of the season, he would see ghosts, lots of them. And it's not fair to him to have just not enough time back in the pocket to make a play. It's like, you can blame Cutler all you want for all the struggles, but he doesn't have time. He's already expecting to get his ass on the ground, and within 3 seconds, not even 2.5 seconds, that's not even close to the amount of time to drop back, find an open receiver, and get it out of the hands. It's just, you can't do that. But what I'm saying is, with a weak offensive line, it affects the run game. And what happens when you affect the run game? You can't run the ball. Then they're just going to sit back in a zone, man coverage, and pick off Cutler. There's a lot of negatives here. And don't get me wrong, I'm still very much excited about the Chicago Bears season in 2016. They're going to be competitive. They're going to be in a mix on a lot of games. They're probably going to be in a couple heartbreakers. They better not. They better win those games, or else I'm just going to lose my mind. But whatever. We have so much to look forward to. This is an organization that's moving on up. Ryan Pace had a very good draft this year, and I feel like most of the picks that he made are going to be impact players moving forward for a while. Hopefully that they can find a couple lockdown cornerbacks in this draft. Hopefully Kevin White turns out to be the player that they expect him to be. Hopefully Leonard Floyd turns out to be a pretty decent pass rusher. But for right now, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the Bears to make the playoffs, but I think they can do it. There's no reason they can't, especially with a capable coaching staff and their favorable schedule, a quarterback that can get them there, running back group that is talented, young but talented. Really the concerns for me is them being able to stay healthy. That's like, because if guys go down, they are just going to go down as a team overall. It's going to be very hard for them to overcome injuries with the lack of depth. The depth is inexperienced and bad, quite frankly. And it's unfortunate because going into the season, they made it such an issue to address the depth. And I think they did defensively. Offensively, on the other hand, besides wide receiver group and the running back position, it's not much. That line is going to be a work in progress throughout the season, and that's going to be concerning. But all right, let's move on to the preseason game number 3. What should we expect in week 3 of the preseason? Well, not sure how long Jeremy Langford's going to stay on the field. Now, if you're listening to this after the preseason game, critique me, please. Just tell me how wrong I am. But Jeremy Langford, I'm not sure how many minutes he's going to be on the field. And usually they go into the third quarter, the starting unit. This is definitely the closest to game ready in game 1 that they will be. I'm hoping that they get Kevin White more involved. And I know they don't want to kind of portray their offense really to the Texans in week 1. You don't want to get film out there that they can dissect and prep for. You kind of want to, catch them off guard, I guess, in the first week of the regular season, because you're withholding your main plays throughout the preseason. You're just getting basic packages, run schemes, blocking schemes. Yeah, I haven't seen really many disguised blitzes by the Bears this preseason so far, so we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, Kevin White. I want to see Kevin White in there a little bit more. I want to see him get the ball in his hands more. And hopefully they make that a pressing issue throughout the first half and into the third quarter. Third preseason game is going to be fun, but they're hurt. They're so hurt. All right, enough with the negatives. Looking forward to the Chicago Bears season. Guys, it's less than 20 days away. I'm so excited. September 11th in Houston. Let's do it. Super Bowl, Super Bears. Shout out Mark Weber.